Yep, sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another awesome video by Capt Frank Lanier. Please subscribe, like, and share with all your friends and all the people you hate too. Okay, so today we're looking at emergency distress signals that you're required to have on the boat. Of course, it depends on the, what you're going to use, the type of distress signals and stuff. So this one is an SOS distress light. It's not an electronic flare. It's a strobe or SOS distress light. When you turn this thing on, it flashes SOS. So this enables you to not have to carry flares like pyrotechnic flares and stuff. But the thing is, just to keep in mind that when you have this is for nighttime use, and then the flag, which is down here, is for daytime use. So for this to meet the requirements, the carriage requirements, you have to have both of them, not just the light, but also the flare. Night use, day use. And if you got both of those, then you're covered. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at a large catamaran. And on the underside, you have your emergency egress hatches. You got two of them. You got one over here, one over there. In case the catamaran flips, then you can get out, right? And you'll notice, you were just looking inside here, you can see that you have this hammer right here is underneath the steps, right? And that's so that if you need to, you can shatter the glass. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at a gasoline-powered, mid-sized powerboat. Big old gas engines right there, V8s. And we're looking specifically at the ventilation system. In other words, you have to turn the vent, turn the blowers on and run this thing, 3-5 minutes before you start it, right? Well, you've got the ductwork here. It's coming in. And it's just sitting right there on top of the whole thing, right? So it's just blocked off. It's not going to be sucking in any air and stuff, right? This, of course, should be mounted down here, down to the bridge, below the carburetor level. So anyway, the recommendation here would be to properly mount the blower ductwork. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at these Herky inline fuses here. They've got one here, they got one up here. So the concern here, of course, is accidental shorting. I emptied this locker out, but still I left this little fan here just so you can see. There was stuff all in here. So what you want to do is these fuses should have some type of protection on them, a cover, something to cover these things so that they you don't have any accidental shorting here. You don't short these things out. Something banging up against them or falling up against them like this, stored in this locker here. And this one will be the same way, right? You don't want any accidental shorting and stuff here. So you want these covered. And that would be today's 60-second survey. Okay, for today's find, another example of the hidden fire extinguisher. This one is in a head compartment. So the fire extinguisher is hidden in here, so you can't really see it. You don't know where it's at. And this fire extinguisher, 07. So it's right at 17 years old. And it is in need of replacement, so due to age. So the recommendation, of course, would be to mount the fire extinguisher in an area where you can easily spot it. If you are going to keep it in a cabinet or something like this, one, it needs to be mounted. But it also, once you have it in here and mounted, not saying this is the best place to mount it, but you would want a plaque on the outside saying fire extinguisher located inside. So here we have something that's a nice touch. You lift up the grate here and you've got a dustbin, an integral dustbin. And of course you can also lift that up and it gives you access to the bilge. Is it a requirement to have this thing? No, but it's just a nice touch. It's convenient when sweeping the cabin. So it's just another indicator of attention to detail by the manufacturer. So today we're looking at the hydraulic steering system on a mid-sized trawler. And the first thing we see underneath the steering ram here is some oil absorbent pad. And it's yellow, by the way, which means it has, fluid or oil on it. The first thing you should ask yourself when you see this is, why is this pad here? Well, it's there because the owner has a hydraulic fluid leak and he's yet to fix it. And that's why the padding's there. And that's today's 60-second survey. So for today's find, we're looking at the raw water intake for an engine. You can see the section from the seacock to the strainer here is newer. However, if you take a look at the section between the strainer and the engine, a quick shine of the light here, it shows that it is badly deteriorated and in need of replacement. So what probably happened, someone noticed that the section of hose between the seacock and the strainer was deteriorated, and they replaced that. However, they failed to also replace the section between the strainer and the engine, and it needs to be replaced. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today, we're looking at the ground tackle of a mid-sized or smaller powerboat, and we've got some issues here. I'm going to just walk through them. You've probably seen these previously in some of my other 60-second surveys, but they're important, so we'll cover them again. First up, the screw pin shackle here for the anchor chain connection. It needs to have it needs to be moused or secured with stainless steel wire to prevent it from unscrewing. And as we work our way down to the road, here's the other end, and actually that's loose. So you can see how this one is loose, right? This is why you want to have them mouse and tight so they don't unscrew by accident. Also, this line has had a thimble spliced into it here at some point to protect the line from chafe. That's fallen out, so it needs to be respliced. And finally, here's the bitter end over here. This needs to be attached to the vessel. Probably right there would be a good spot so that it didn't go over by mistake. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at the transom sacrificial anodes. They're commonly called zincs, although they may not be zincs. But we're looking at the transom plates here on a mid-sized trawler, and they look like they're in good condition. The problem is that they're loose. See how they're moving like that right there? They shouldn't be loose, they should be tight. And in fact, if you look at this, you can see that it looks like the actual stud that the zincs are bolted onto is moving, right? So that means that you're gonna have to go inside and hold that and tighten these, because if you don't, it's gonna leak. One, it'll leak into the lazarette back there, and two, if they're not tight, then they're not going to be protected as they should be. So the recommendation, of course, snug these up, tighten them up, and make sure they're not leaking. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at the shore power plugs and inlets on a mid-sized trawler. And the issue we have today is, if you look at the retaining ring here, it is cracked. See, this is cracked right here. This retaining ring, once you plug this in, the retaining ring screws into the inlet here, and that's what keeps the the shore power plug from wiggling around and stuff, making micro arcs and sparks, which could cause damage and a potential fire if it gets to that certain point. So you always want to have this plugged in, have it good and snug, and then have this tightened up to prevent excessive wiggling. And again, the make or break of the breaking of the contact here when it wiggles around. And so the recommendation is to replace this retaining ring. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're inside the console of a small powerboat, mid-sized powerboat, which has a tower attached to it. And what we see here is the cabling wiring coming down from the small tower on the boat. It's coming in, it's coming through into the console here, and it goes back out to the boat itself. So you can see here, this has been cut, but there's no chafe protection provided for the cables, conduits, and everything else here. So the recommendation, of course, is to provide adequate chafe protection for these cable runs, wire runs, and stuff, and on both sides here. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at the air conditioning system on a mid-sized sailboat, and we have three things we're looking at here. One, if you look at the seacock handle here, you can see a significant amount of corrosion on here. So this will need to be cleaned, and we'll check it. It actually does operate, but it's corroded. It needs to be looked at. Number two, you've got reinforced vinyl hose, clear vinyl hose being used for your raw water intake, and this is not suitable for use on a through-hole fitting below the waterline. Next up, you got the strainer here for the air conditioning unit itself. It's not mounted and loose, and you can also see the pump for the air conditioning unit is also loose, needs to be mounted. So those are four things that need to be corrected. Okay, so today's time we're looking at a mid-sized sailboat, and we're looking at how the vessel rests in the water. See how if it's got a list. So we take a point right here and measure it, and you got about 5 inches here to the scum line, and we walk over to the other side, and you can see it the same point on the slings. Got about an inch right here, right? So that means the boat's got about a 4-inch list to starboard. You can see the scum line here on the water line here, as opposed to the other side. See how much you've got right here, right? So again, that's how much list you've got on the sailboat. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at life jackets, PFDs, personal flotation devices. This is a Kapok life jacket, and I probably covered this before, but we're going to cover it again because it's very important. This is an older style design. It uses the material from the Kapok tree to provide flotation. That means that inside of these jackets, these older jackets, you have a plastic bag, and that contains the material from the Kapok tree that provides the flotation. The problem, and the thing you have to look out for and test if you have these type of jackets, is that if these bags, if they get punctured or they lose their water airtight integrity, water can come in here and flood these things, and then it'll saturate the material and sink you like a rock. How do you check it? Well, you squeeze down on it. If you can hear the air going out like we hear here, see how it's kind of come back up? Same thing here, right? This is not even maintaining any air. So that's how you check it. And the best thing to do is just replace these things if you have them on board, and get some modern units that use foam flotation material and stuff. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, and I apologize for the wind, it is howling out here today. We're looking at rod rigging on a sailboat. A couple of things going on here. One, this one, the shroud, inner shroud here, is loose. It needs to be adjusted and tightened. The other thing is the turnbuckles, as you can see here, they do not have cotter pins installed. So you need to have cotter pins installed here, and the rig needs to be adjusted. And that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, we're looking at emergency flares. We've got 12-gauge meteor flares and stuff in a gun. A couple of things going on here. One, you can tell these flares are shot. If you look right here, you can see them just, deteriorated badly. And of course, if you look at the, the expiration dates, they're well out of the expiration date. But the other thing I wanted to point out, and a lot of times you have with these older guns, is that a lot of people don't know there was a certain period where these things would lock up and you could not open them, right? So if we look at this right here, we're going to try to hold it, and you can see it doesn't open, right? And the reason it doesn't open is Olin had a recall. They had the guns were made with some type of material where they swell up here and they can't open. So if you contact them, you can get a replacement gun for these. And that's today's 60-second survey. For today's find, we're looking at a mid-sized powerboat, sport fishing boat, and it's on a trailer. And we're looking at the winch and stuff for the trailer, and we're looking specifically at the attachment point here for the bow eye. And you can see that the webbing has broken, rotted through here, and the owner has simply just tied a knot in here to hold the eye in. So of course the recommendation here would be to, this winch strap, you can tell it's in pretty bad shape anyway, this webbing here. So the recommendation here would be to replace this with a new strap, one that's it's sewed and reinforced and stuff, rather than this you know, the knot here. I don't know what it is. You know, they always say if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot, and that's kind of like what we've done here. So anyway, that's today's 60-second survey. Okay, so for today's find, another episode of the, wait for it, hidden fire extinguishers. So we've got two extinguisher units, portable units mounted in here, which is fine. The only issue inside here is that both of these brackets, the mounting brackets, are damaged, so they're not operational. That's why they're loose. But the bigger thing, if this locker's closed, you don't know what's in here. You don't know where they're at. So you need a sticker or a placard here that just indicates there are fire extinguishers inside. That's all you need to do. And that's today's 60-second survey. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if so, and you want to buy Captain Frank a cup of coffee, please click on the thanks button below this video. All tips received, not spent on coffee, will be used to improve my YouTube channel and create even more awesome videos.